Phil, welcome to Locked In. You had a little bit of a drive to get here this morning, but
from,
you made
from Delaware. Yep.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you making the drive. Shout out to your friend for making the drive with you too that's listening.
Yeah. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, and I hope you guys enjoy the Tyson edibles and joints we're sending you back with.
Yeah, sounds great, man.
Yeah, definitely let me know how you like them.
I will.
After.
I'll reach back out. That's fine.
Yeah, I think I gave you blackberry and watermelon.
Okay.
I did the watermelon the other night.
Yeah.
Me and my buddy Mike, who you met earlier, we got so high last night. Stayed up a little too late after dinner.
Yeah.
Because I've been trying to get to bed like 9:30, and we all went out to dinner and didn't get to bed till like 1 o'clock. So I canceled training this morning and stuff and got a late start.
So do you ever use cannabis for sleep?
I just use it for sleep.
So my dad, he's a pharmacist, and says that there have been some very bad studies that have come out about using cannabis directly for sleep. Just a heads up. Yeah. So
why? What are the studies?
I don't know. It's just... He follows stuff like that, but I don't know. It's just what he said.
Yeah, but then you could make the argument for melatonin.
That's what I take every night, yeah.
You take melatonin?
A lot of it,
I'm immune to melatonin now.
Yeah.
I took melatonin for the first time in prison. So we used to take, when you got melatonin smuggled in, you take that. Or the biggest one in prison was the cheap knockoff allergy pills. Yeah. Those things will have you knocked out and drowsy. I think it's worse than alcohol, the federal prison allergy pills.
That's wild that people were smuggling in stuff like that.
Oh, we'd get everything. Protein powder. Just anything that teeth whitening strips. Anything that helps, like the little things,
Right. It's all
they
about
don't
comfort,
want weapons or anything in the camps. They want just comfort.
Where I was at, there was nothing like that. I mean, it was not possible to get something in the building I was at, so...
Did you grow up in Delaware?
Yeah, a small town called Greenwood, Delaware. Maybe like 1,000 people. And then when I was in 8th grade, we moved over to a slightly bigger town called Milford.
Oh, we have a Milford, Connecticut.
I know.
Oh, you did?
Every time I Google it, it always comes up.
And who did you grow up with?
So I have an older brother and an older sister, and my mom and dad. So it was just us 5. And we were a good family, man. So not really any trauma in my life growing up.
What did your parents do for work?
My dad is a pharmacist, and my mom was able to, she would take odd jobs here and there when she could, when she felt like she needed to, but she was just a stay-at-home mom for us.
So you guys had some money, good financial situation?
I mean, pharmacists, they do it. He was able to provide for us. I mean, growing up, like that man, he worked constantly. He was in that pharmacy 12 hours a day, every day. You know what I mean? It was a small company. It was bought out by Rite Aid, but I remember he was always working, but he always made time for us also to like baseball games and soccer or stuff like that.
Did your dad teach you about drugs at a young age because he was a pharmacist?
No. I mean, growing up, I didn't even really know what he did. You know what I mean? Until I became a teenager.
How would people describe you as a kid?
A lot of energy, rambunctious. I wasn't like a troublemaker, but I was definitely mischievous as a kid. And
you look like one of those.
I know. And this is me at my best, man.
Did you do public schooling for middle school and high school?
Yeah, my whole life I went to public school. So I went to Woodbridge School District till 8th grade, and then went over to Milford. And Woodbridge is just a very small, I think it's the smallest school district in the state of Delaware, but adjusting from Woodbridge to Milford, a school of 200 to a school of 1,200, it was a little bit hard on me switching.
What about career aspirations? What do you want to be when you grow up?
When I was young?
Yeah.
I wanted to be a commercial crabber.
A crabber?
A crabber.
I see the lobster on your head.
Yeah. It's a hard life, but my buddy used to take me all the time, and I just loved being on the water. I still love it to this day.
So did you do that in high school at all? Were you a crabber?
We would do it recreationally. My buddy, he's a nursing instructor during the school year, but he has summers off, so he's actually a commercial crabber now. So I do help him from time to time. When
take
he needs
me on
it
a crabbing trip, man.
Hey, you want to go? We'll absolutely take you.
Do you guys eat it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
I love crab.
Yeah, he'll sell what he has to, and he'll usually slide me some when we go if I want some.
Now, aren't there is it like lobsters where there's certain crabs that are tagged that you can't kill or take, or no?
So I'm not sure. I've never seen a blue crab that is tagged. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I've never seen it.
I've been watching all those TikToks. I don't know why I came up on my For You page, but just the lobsters in the ocean and all the eggs they show. Like if it's a mom with, I guess they have like 1,000 eggs on them or something. Millions.
They notch the tail to show that they're a breeder.
Exactly. And they have to put it back in the water and everything like that. So that's what's been on my For You page for anyone that's wondering.
It's wild what pops up on those things sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, commercial crabber, which I never achieved that. It's kind of a dying industry, but whatever.
Did you get in any trouble in high school?
Oh yeah. I got, nothing major until my junior year. I was kicked out my junior year for the assault that eventually landed me in prison.
All right, so walk us through that. Tell us what happened.
So
junior year of high school, correct?
I was in my junior year. Basically, we were just bad teenagers, and we were kind of selling weed, selling whatever, and somebody robbed my friend, and we were just trying to get it back, talk to the guys, work out a solution. Obviously, they weren't getting it back. We should have known, and it was mischief night. We were about to go do some mischief, and we see these kids riding their bikes through towns who had just robbed my friend, and we stop them, and we're like, hey, what the fuck, guys? Come on. And one of those guys, he reaches in the car and smacks my friend in the face, and we're like, all right, time to do something here. So then they're like, if you guys want to fight us, just meet us back here. So we get out, and for some reason, I put a baseball bat down my sweatpants. Don't know why, just a dumb kid, huge mistake. And we're following them for a mile. They're maybe 100 yards ahead of us. And we end up in this Section 8 apartment complex. And they turned around they wanted to make friends and make things right. But they did this weird sneak attack on us. And so my boy and the one kid start popping off. They start fighting. My boy has the kid on the ground. He's beating him up. One of their friends sees the writing on the wall. He just takes off running. So there's now 4 of us and 2 of them. But the one that stayed, I could see him trying to angle around the fight to get in on it. And I pulled out the bat, dumbass, and I'm like, yo, stop. Let him fight. Let him take his beating or whatever. And he sprinted at me, and it just all happened so quick, and I hit him. And it was one of those moments that just you fucked up the second you did it. And then after that, we made a bunch of other mistakes. We hid the baseball bat, another charge. So.
What happened to him when you hit him?
Oh, it was a moment I'll never forget. He just dropped and was rolling around on the ground. He made this noise. I can still hear it to this day, that I'll never forget. And I thought I killed him. I thought I messed up really bad. And so I guess he had a couple fractures in his skull. He ended up being fine, but still you can't do that. You know what I mean? And so we run back to the cars. We hide the bat. I call the girl I was dating at the time, and I'm like, hey, can I come see you at work? Or she's like, I'll come meet you in this parking lot. And I'm like, hey, I messed up real bad tonight, and I just want to say bye. And went home, told my parents, and they immediately get on the phone with the lawyer. And the lawyer's just like, don't say a fucking word. Call your friends. Don't tell them, don't say a word. He said they have to prove you did this. You know what I mean? And and he's like, go to school, don't run away, just do everything normal. If they come and arrest you, call me. So I go to school. Next morning, I'm in first period. Vice principal walks in. He says, Phil, come on, let's go. And walk me down to the principal's office. And the second I walk in the door, these 4 cops just grab me up and push me against the wall. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess, that's out of the way. So they did the same thing to each of us individually. They called us all down one by one. So we all go to the police station. And obviously I didn't say anything. One of my other friends didn't say anything either. But eventually they talked two of my friends and it's telling everything that happened. So I'm just kind of cooked like right from the beginning. So yeah, I got assault with a deadly weapon, couple counts of harassment, second degree conspiracy. And I don't know if there was maybe a couple other light misdemeanors, something like that. And they, not only did they charge me, they charged all my friends with that too, who they didn't really have anything to, I mean, they were there, but they didn't really have anything to do with it, which is just more motivation for them to talk. You know what I mean? And basically, we all have no contact orders. We're all still hanging out anyway. And, you know, a couple months down the road, one of them gets a plea bargain, you know, level 1 probation. That just means in Delaware, don't get in trouble again. Another one, level 1 unsupervised, third one. And I was thinking like, man, what about me? Like when am I going to find out my sentence? And I was just sitting on my couch and my mom comes in with a letter from my lawyer and it says, it was forwarded, it was between my lawyer and the prosecutor, but he forwarded it to me also. And it said, you know, thank you for considering 6 months level 5 boot camp, level 5 correctional boot camp at Sussex Correctional Institute. And so like we have a meeting with him and he's like, look, dude, you messed up here. Like you're going to get something. He said, this is the best I can do. We can go to trial, but like the evidence against you is just so stacked that, you know, I would not recommend that. I think that this plea bargain I know you're young. I think that this is the way to go. So they waited until my 18th birthday, to sentence me. And then 2 weeks later, about 2 weeks later, they put me in, prison. So.
Would you have considered yourself a violent person at the time?
No, not at all. I think I was just a dumb kid who didn't have any, I didn't consider any consequences when I was doing that. And maybe I just wanted to like be one of the guys, you know what I mean? Which I was and everything, but you know, I don't really have a good reason as to why I did that, you know?
Why do you think you didn't stay and make sure he was okay? You know, why did you choose to run away? It
just all happened so fast. And you know, his friend was there and like, I think his friend did end up like taking him away and they got a hold of an ambulance. But yeah, like when something like that happens, it just, everything's so quick. You don't know what to do sometimes, you know what I mean? So.
Did it feel weird just going back to school like nothing happened?
I was devastated. Like I knew that they were going to come arrest me. And I just walked into first period, put my head on the desk, started sleeping. And I'd slept until the principal got there.
So why even go that far? Why not just turn yourself in when, you know, you knew?
Well, it had only happened the night before and we weren't sure what if they were even going to tell on me, if that makes sense. And that was what my lawyer also said to do. He just said, act like normal. You know what I mean? He said, whatever you do, don't run. Just go to school. You know what I mean?
How did your parents react to your arrest and the situation?
Absolutely horrified. You know, they did not have words for any of that. And they were taken by surprise. They thought I was just like, maybe like a troubled kid who would find his way eventually. And then all this happened.
What did you end up getting sentenced to?
So I was sentenced to 4 years in prison, suspended for 6 months correctional boot camp.
And what is correctional boot camp for people to know?
So, all right, Delaware, a little mini state, total inmate population of 5,000. So they said, you know, I would assume if we can make a boot camp, get some discipline in some of these offenders' lives that qualify, you know, and we can get, you know, 100 offenders a year not to go out and reoffend, that could make a big difference in the whole crime, you know, and all the crime in Delaware, essentially. You know what I mean?
And had you heard anything about it before? Did you know anyone that was there?
No.
Had you watched any like prison shows or anything?
I watched the one about Miami-Dade. There's a boot camp in Miami-Dade jail or prison or something. And that was a vacation compared to what I went through at this fucking place.
Now, did they, when they sentenced you, did they haul you away right then and there, or you had time to surrender?
Yeah. So the day I was sentenced, I was instantly on level 3 probation. I had to go to the, like in the basement of the courthouse and get my probation officer. So I think they gave me about 2 weeks. And my probation officer called me one morning and he said, hey, be outside your steps at 7 a.m. I'm going to pick you up. And,
oh, he picks you up?
My probation officer and took me to, it's kind of funny. So like I get in the car and he hands me a pair of handcuffs and he's like, hey man, just put these on before we get to the jail. Well, I buckle the seatbelt, then put the handcuffs on. So when I go to get out, I can't because the seatbelt, and the guard is like, yo, why did you do that? Like, and he's like, yo, you're a fucking idiot. Like, why'd you know what I mean?
Wow, that's funny. He had you put the handcuffs on.
Yeah, he just handed them to me and he said, here, man, just sometime between now and we get to the prison.
What was he telling you in the car?
I don't remember. I don't think we were even really talking. I think he might have been like something to the effect of like, hey, like when you get out, like I'm going to be your PO and like, this is what this is going to be like and here's what to expect. And yeah, it was a lot worse than what he said it was going to be.
How tough was that time period from when the day you got arrested to when you actually got sentenced? Because you got kicked out of school?
Yeah, they kicked me out of school for out of school conduct.
So people were probably, talking about you.
Town.
Yeah.
Talk of the whole town.
What were you doing?
At this point, it just that I don't give a shit mentality. You know what I mean? Like, just out doing bad stuff, drinking all the time. I wasn't in school. So like, I'm just hanging out with my friends I just got arrested with. And we're just, I don't know, doing dumb teenager stuff,
Were your parents starting to get more strict on you? Or were they keeping you under a tight leash? So
my parents lost control of me at a pretty young age. I don't want to say they gave up, but like they're such nice people. I was just able to outmaneuver them so easily. And anything they said, I always had an answer. I always had a plan. I always had it all figured out. You know what I mean? I think we've all been there before. I know you put your parents through it too, Ian. Yeah. And what started my whole thing was mischief night too. That's what started it all. Yeah, we were just about to go like TP houses. It just nothing crazy. Like, and that's when it all kicked off. So walk us through from the moment you got dropped off at the facility. Tell us what you're seeing, how you're feeling, what happened. So at this point, it hadn't really hit me, like just exactly what was going to happen to me. And, I'm in booking and receiving, and obviously all the inmates are in white jumpsuits. And they go, they get me changed, they search me, they do all that. Well, they hand me these like green khaki pants with a green shirt and black boots. And he's like, yeah, these are what the people at boot camp wear. And I'm just like, okay. He's like, go sit over there. They did the whole medical, the TB test, just the normal stuff that happens when you get when you go to jail or prison. And, I'm there for a couple hours and I see, obviously, what a guard looks like when you're in prison. They have at least in Delaware, they have the blue shirts with the blue pants. Well, I see a guy walking up in all black with I thought it was like a cowboy hat, but I guess it was like a drill instructor hat. And he walks up to me and he just starts screaming at me, get up, get the fuck up, let's go, we're going. And he takes me to medical. And like, at this point, it became very real to me, like about what I was about to go through, you know what I mean? And, so in this whole time in medical, he's like, there were like a lot of female nurses and stuff down there. And I don't know if he was like trying to impress them, but he was just like up in my face, pushing me, just not being a very nice guy. So we finished there. At this point, I'm just bawling my eyes out as we're walking from medical to the building. And so we get to the building and I mean, the guy could see that I'd been crying or whatever. And he looks at me and he's like, hey, dude, I would do yourself a favor and get those fucking tears out of your eyes before I put you in this bay. And I'm like, okay, I'll do my best. And like I look so young. I look like a 14-year-old and I walk in there and I could just see the faces of the guys on the pod and they're all just like, who is this guy? This is very strange. Immediately, like, it wasn't really racially segregated because we're all doing 6 months. We're all getting out on the same day. But like, I just immediately went to like the white guys and was like, hey, like, what's up? And they're like, we talked for a little bit. And then it hit me more and more about just where I was at and just that I couldn't get out of there. And then I start crying again in the middle of the bay. And one of the guys, he's like, hey man, do yourself a favor. Tell them you're going to kill yourself. And you know what happens when you say that, right? He's like, they'll send you somewhere better, man. They'll give you a TV and, you'll be able to call home. And so I go up to the guard and I'm like, hey man, I'm going to kill myself. He's like, you sure you want to say that? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, let's go. And, they take me down to medical. Again, I was just there a couple hours before. Well, in Delaware, when you say you're going to kill yourself or somebody else, they put you in the padded room. A lot of prisons I've seen, like they wear like the green smocks. Not the case in Delaware.
The turtle suit.
Yeah. Well, they give you a paper smock, which they were out of. So I was in there ass naked. And this is going in the 4th of July weekend. And in order to get out of there, you have to see a psychiatrist. Well, there's no doctors at that prison for like 5 days. So I'm stuck in this room for 5 days. It's freezing cold. People were like looking in the glass at me. Like, and it was really bad. And that was when I realized that I need to get back to boot camp and take my chances over there. So like, a couple days roll around, psych doctor. I'm like, I messed up, dude. Somebody just told me to say that. And he's like, okay, like we'll get you back into that boot camp. We'll give you another try. And I go in there and like, so like at that boot camp, it's based off the boot camp in Miami-Dade. All the drill instructors, they would send them down there for 2 weeks and they would be trained by their drill instructors, on how to be one essentially. And, so, your first 2 months they're just torturing you. No phone calls, no visits. You could write, that's it. And second 2 months you could have, visits through glass one weekend and phone calls the next. In your third 2 months, you could be on the phone after 5 and get a visit every weekend in person. But while I was there, there's I noticed like 3 types of drill instructors in this facility. Like you have the good ones who want to help us, and then the ones that just want to do their 8 and go home. And then you have the psychopaths, the ones that would like torture us and like do all kinds of crazy shit to us, and just stuff like that.
So was everyone in the pod starting on day 1, like for the boot camp?
So,
because you had said that everyone's there for the 6 months. So is it like every time there's a new group of people, they start fresh?
Yeah. So every 2 months, there's 3 pods in there. Every 2 months, one would graduate and they would repopulate that pod with people that had been like, let's say like you are in a Delaware prison on a gun charge and you have an ounce of cocaine, just giving an example. And you get 9 years. So what you could do if you're doing under 10 years, you could write your judge and say, I want to get a modification. Instead of 9 years, I want to do 6 months correctional boot camp.
Wait, they'll trade 9 years in prison for 6 months boot camp?
Yeah. I mean, if you met the criteria, you couldn't be in there for a sex offense. You could be a sex offender, but you could not be in prison at that time for a sex offense. And it had to be nonviolent. So also, let me back up a little bit. My lawyer got all the nonviolent stuff dropped. I mean, all the violent stuff dropped. So my only conviction was secondary conspiracy, which is like the lightest felony.
So at that point, why didn't they just give you probation then if they're going to drop the assault?
Somebody had to do some time for it, and I was the one. So
when you get in there, everyone's on day 1 though?
They're all coming from different prisons. So there might be like a 7-day window where like they'll be bringing people in.
But they'll wait to start the actual boot camp until everyone's there.
Yeah, and we're all getting out on the exact same day.
So you're all on the same playing field. Like no one knows what's about to happen or anything. Okay.
And like that eliminated like all the violence and stuff. You know what I mean? Just because everyone... Like there's a light at the end of the tunnel at that point,
Now, is this pod where you're staying the whole boot camp, or is that just a holding spot till you start?
No, that was at the boot camp.
Okay, so you're in this unit or whatever.
Yeah.
And what is it, just like a tier or pod?
It's a pod, but there was 3 of them in the building, and then like the place where like the guards were had like the two-way mirrors, and it could see into all 3 pods. You know what I mean?
And you're in bunk beds, cells?
Bunk beds.
Is it like a barracks or?
No, I would imagine it being something similar to a regular pod.
So actual cells?
No, it was open dorm.
Open dorm,
yeah,
okay.
Open dorm. Yeah.
Now, are there guards or are they just the drill instructors?
So they were guards that had done this training program in Miami-Dade and were now drill instructors. And I think it was like a pay raise for them if they went from CO to drill instructor. And also like instead of being a C, it's an automatic promotion too. Once you complete that training in Miami.
So how long were you in limbo before the program actually started?
I was the last one there.
Oh,
everybody was there already. They were all waiting for me.
So the next day was when it started?
Yes.
After you got over the suicide watch situation?
They kind of let me slide on that. Like all their time had already started, and I was in that cell for 5 days, and they brought me back, and they just let me slide on the 5 days. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us, day 1 of boot camp, what's that like? Walk us through the whole day.
A lot of drill instructors up in your face, yelling at you, making you do push-ups, just messing with you, trying to get in your head. Like the motto behind like any boot camp, whether it's military, correctional, anything, is they want to break you down, build you back up with some confidence. Well, all these people did was break us down. Like they never like rebuilt us, if that makes sense. And they were just messing with us. And obviously they had rules to follow, we'd count at certain times, stuff like that. But it was they were just torturing us pretty much.
What time's wake up?
5.
5 a.m.
Yeah.
And do you go to breakfast first or are you doing some type of activity?
Like the way a normal day would start, once you're there for a little while, like your body wakes itself up because they pop the doors and they all just come in screaming, blowing whistles. So like your body kind of builds this alarm clock to wake up like 5 minutes before they come in. So you're already awake. But like a normal day at that boot camp, wake up at 5, we would be counted just like a normal prison. And then we'd fall out. We could brush our teeth, do, whatever hygiene stuff, I think for like 15 minutes. And then we would go outside, we would do PT, which is just running, push-ups, stuff like that. Come back in, go to breakfast, and like, after breakfast, there was a little bit of downtime. So that's when the guards were coming in, messing with us. And something else they did that was pretty messed up was they would just never let us fall out. They would keep us on this line after breakfast till lunch, back on the line after lunch till dinner. So I don't know if you've ever stood in one spot for more than a few hours, but it becomes painful, and people were like pissing themselves, and like it's something they definitely should not have been doing.
How could you get disqualified from the program, like kicked out? Were people getting kicked out?
I didn't see anyone get kicked out. If you let's just say you get in a fight and get caught, people would fight, but it would be in the bathrooms where they couldn't see them. If you get in a fight, it's out in the open, you get caught, they would just back you up 2 months. So you instead of doing 6 months boot camp, you would do 8 months boot camp. And yeah, I think everybody that I was with stayed, and we all got out on the same day.
Was it just PT every day, or was there like fun activities, or maybe like exercises, or
there was
going through tires, climbing over walls, anything like that when you hear the word boot camp?
I mean, a lot of like push-ups, a lot of sit-ups. They did have a sand pit, which you don't want to be in a sand pit in July. It's hot and it sucks, and you just feel disgusting. And they would do like other military stuff. A lot of, it was just, you had to be in like military bearing all day. You walked in lines, we would do a lot of marching, like around the prison. Stuff like that. It was pretty unorganized there at that point. I think it had gone off the rails a little bit.
How was the food there?
Horrible. They starved us. So they said that since we were like, more physically active than a normal inmate because we're running and doing push-ups and stuff, that they fed us extra, but I think they might have fed us less, to be honest. And like, I remember we couldn't have any food there on commissary. So you could get 10 packs of Halls every week and Tums. Halls, cough drops, and Tums. And people, I mean, I would eat Halls constantly just because I was so hungry and the portions were so little. And there was one time, did you ever have like, I think it's like sweet potato casserole when you were in?
I don't think we had sweet potato. I don't think we had any type of casserole.
It was, I guess that was the idea behind it, but it was just, and it's dinner, we're all starving. It was just like this orange liquid that they like dumped on my plate. And I'm like, I might as well have had nothing. You know what I mean? And it was weird. Like, even though we were all physically active, like we all like got these like real big stomachs, if that makes sense. I don't know. It was really weird.
Probably from the sodium.
I have no idea what that was about, but, and it fell off once I left, but.
So was it just the same meals all the time, or
it was like that, whatever the rest of the prison was eating, that we would eat.
Oh, so it was normal prison food.
Yeah.
Just minus commissary.
Yeah. And a lot of it was unedible. And I mean, if you're going to eat that or nothing, you're going to eat it. You know what I mean? But it was a struggle.
What's the age group of the individuals there?
18 and above. So if you're 18 and you're physically able to do this boot camp, then you know that they would let you in if you qualified with your charges.
Did you see older guys there?
There were a couple older guys. I'd say no one older than 50 though. But yeah, there were a couple old heads in there.
Are you allowed visits?
Not the first 2 months. Second 2 months, we could every other weekend we could have a visit through glass.
What about phone calls?
Every other weekend. And then the third 2 months, we could use the phones after 5 and visits every weekend.
Now on the weekends, what are you doing?
They're just torturing us. I mean,
so it's just 7 days a week.
Yeah. And like, I remember like they would like have us outside doing push-ups and like the, you know, July, August. And like, I have blisters all over my hands. And like every day, like I had blisters on blisters on blisters. Like, I mean, sit-ups, just a lot of like stuff that not to do something like that to somebody. You know what I mean? What
time are you done for the day?
I say things kind of settled down about 5:30, but like they would still come on there. And like there were days where they would just make us stand on line. I mean, probably 12 hours a day. You can't move, just hands down to your side, feet at a 45-degree angle all day. And it was not what they intended it to be. Like I'll say that much.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then do you get TV time at night? Or?
No TV.
So there was no TV at all the 6 months?
Nope.
So I guess everyone's just so exhausted they're falling asleep?
Yeah, I mean, nighttime, like we found stuff to do. Like you could write letters, you could do schoolwork.
Any cards?
No recreational activities in there. You had to have like a set of like clothes of like green khakis that you wore daily. And then you had to have like a white pair that you wore to like, the classes. Does that make sense? Like, so we would iron our clothes and make them look all pretty. And if your clothes weren't ironed right, they would kind of mess with you more. And yeah, it was, I don't know, not a very good time. Don't recommend it.
What about your GED? Did they make you get that?
Yeah. So about the GED. So, so the day I get back from medical, they give me like a test. And I was just like so distraught from being there that like, I failed this test so bad. I'm just doing like C, like on the bubbles. And she's like, you have like, you're at about a second grade level, the teacher. And I'm just like, okay. And so I'm doing like, everyone else is doing like algebra and stuff. I'm doing like plus, addition and subtraction and like, and then I realized like, okay, that's not so bad. Let me just focus, not worry about school. I can just do this bullshit schoolwork that a second grader does until I get out of here. And then I'll worry about my GED. And yeah, that was pretty much the schooling for me.
When your family was allowed to come visit you, did they? Like, were they supportive?
Yeah, every chance they could. But it was very uncomfortable having my family come there because, so all of the visits in the prison outside of this building, were in one room right in the front of the jail. Well, they didn't want to let us have visits in there. So they would have to take your family, walk them through the compound with one guard, past all the convicts, and they're all lined up at the fence, whistling, stuff like that. And like, it was very uncomfortable watching them because I could see them through the windows when they would come like down for the visits. It was, and they came every chance they could. So
when you were in there, were you thinking about how your life would be after you got out?
No, I was
what you were going to do, how you were going to live with a felony on your record?
No, I was just trying to survive at that point.
So when you're preparing to leave the boot camp, are they preparing you for anything? Are they helping you with a job?
No. Just they release you onto level. Well, we were all sentenced differently. Some of them got home confinement. I was sentenced to a year level 3 probation, which I don't know how you guys do it here, but like basically that's, you got to go to your probation officer every week. I think a 10 o'clock curfew, drug tested every week. And he would come see me maybe once every 2 weeks. And he always had like a Delaware state cop with him when he would pop in on me.
He would have a cop with him?
Yeah.
Is that normal?
It's called Operation Safe Streets. And yeah, it was normal. If you're on level 3 probation, I don't think they wanted to just send probation officers out by themselves without a cop because it's, kind of a volatile environment at some of these people's houses.
What was your plan, to go to college, or did you want to?
I didn't really have a plan after that.
Did you get a job? Did you find work?
Yeah, so I got out and I got a job. And it was at a candy shop in Rehoboth. And yeah, I know it's funny. I did that for a while. After that, I got into the whole restaurant, bartending, serving thing for a long time.
Was it hard to find work with the charges?
No. I mean,
I guess technically you didn't have a violent charge when they dropped it, right?
It was still a felony, but it's not considered violent. In the particular area I live in, it's a very touristy area, especially in the summer. So you can go down there same day, get a job. You can pretty much have your pick of jobs.
Was your incident publicized in the newspaper? Did people know who you were?
Yeah. They didn't post any names though because we were minors. Yeah.
I guess that's a one positive too.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
but everyone knew who it was.
When you got out, were you experimenting with any drugs or alcohol at all?
No, I ran my probation the right way. I was in my house every night. I had a job. I did exactly what my PO said to do. And I was not doing anything when I got out. I was so scared and traumatized and from that.
Did that change after you get off probation?
Yeah, that might have straightened me up for a little bit, but the way he was a very tough probation officer. He always bragged that he had the highest recidivism of any probation officer, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
So that's not good then.
Horrible. Probably the worst probation officer I could have had. But he kept me straight. You know what I mean? God, there was one time my brother was home. He's in the military, and I'm at work, and he was just stopping by, and he said something to my mom. And he's like, Miss Schaap, I think your son, I think he's going to end up back in jail. Well, she loses her shit. She's screaming at him, get the fuck out of her house and don't talk about her son like that. And my brother's there. He's a career Marine. He don't know what to do. He doesn't want to get in between it. And after that, he really he chilled out. You know what I mean? He was still a jerk, but
You're lucky he didn't violate you for that.
I mean, something my mom did,
I don't know. He could have just had a vendetta or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he would have taken it that far, but it's hard to say. He eventually, I'm talking to my friends at the other probation office in a different county, and they're like, yeah, I haven't even been drug tested yet. This guy's drug testing me every week at my house, all the time. And so he's in the reserves. Well, he gets called up. So I go in one day, and instead of going to his office, they send me to a different office. Well, it's his supervisor, and he's just like, Mr. Schaap, you have had 29 clean drug tests. You have 0 curfew violations. You don't owe any fines. Why are you still on probation? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Ask him. I don't know. And he's like, okay, I'm going to release you today, so you're free to go. You don't have to come back here ever again. So I was off probation after that. And it was a good feeling once you get off probation.
Was it hard going from so much structure, like those last, months and years of your teenage years being under probation in the boot camp to then kind of being free?
Yeah, I think I had some pretty bad PTSD from the jail. It's weird. Like when you're in prison, I guess, when you're asleep, you dream that you're outside the prison and you wake up and you're there. And then when you're out of jail, you have dreams that you're back in prison. And like, I would have real bad night terrors and like panic attacks. And it was just, I was having some like mental health issues after that.
What were you doing to cope with that? How did you find help?
I was just kind of dealing with it until those opioids got in my system, you know what I mean? And that's just how I essentially dealt with it for the next 10 years.
How did you discover opioids?
So like, in high school, I'd, eaten a Vicodin here or there, whatever, nothing crazy. I think most teens might do something like that. But I was 19 years old, fresh off probation. My buddy was having a party and there was a kid there acting up and we threw him out. We're like, go to your car, just leave, man. And we walk him out to his car. And I'm walking back. I'm at the back of the pack. Well, he comes up behind me and sucker punches me and shatters my jaw. And it's right in the middle of the opioid heyday when they're just writing them like Skittles, essentially. And I remember like waking up on the ground, like telling my friends, like, yo, something's wrong with my jaw. Like it doesn't line up. My teeth don't line up. And they're like, dude, you'll be fine. Like and I'm like, well, if this isn't better by tomorrow, I'm going to the hospital. So I go to the hospital and they like test me for a concussion and do an x-ray on my jaw. And the doctor comes and he's like, good news and bad news. Good news, you don't have a concussion. Bad news, your jaw shattered. And you now have to have your jaw wired shut for 6 weeks. And that's actually a very intense, invasive surgery. So they drill through your gums like 6 times on the top, 6 times on the bottom and cinch your jaw shut.
Ugh.
And that requires some pain medicine. And that was like my first real experience with it when I'm like, oh, this shit, like it makes me feel better. Like I want this every day. You know what I mean?
When you got hit, were you like, oh my God, here we go again? Like this is another fight. I'm going back to prison.
No, he knocked me out. I was asleep in the snow. And I bounced back up pretty quick, but yeah, they just got him in his car and he left essentially.
And you weren't looking to get any retaliation or anything?
I saw him years later. We talked. He's like, hey man, I'm sorry. I said, yeah, we were kids, dude. Like it's cool.
So where does it start to shift from using the medicine just to help you because of your surgery to now, you're using it,
So I will say that, my dad being a pharmacist, he walks in the room and he sees how much pain medicine I'm on. And he's like, Phil, like, this is a lot of pain medicine. He said, I have people coming in with cancer that aren't on this much. And I'm like, I know, but it's from the doctor. I'm good. Yeah. So I would say, and I had like, I'd go back to this doctor like, oh man, one more thing. So when your jaw wired shut, you can't open your mouth. I had to have liquid pain medicine. So liquid Roxicet, liquid morphine. And I like went to the doctor and I'm like, yeah, man, I knocked the bottle into the sink when it was unscrewed. Like, can I have another one? And he's like, yeah. And I think I ended up getting maybe like 3 of these like 1 liter bottles of liquid Roxicet. Finally, he's like, look, dude, this is your last one. Like you're fine after this. And I would say by the time I was done that prescription, I was almost a full-blown addict.
Wow. Wait, so when you had your jaw wired shut, could you eat regular food?
No, you can't eat.
So what do you do?
And sure, mashed potatoes through a straw.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was looking bad, man.
You were probably skinny as a
I was looking like a Holocaust
you're
victim.
Still skinny now. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I was, same height, but maybe 120 pounds.
And are you working at this time?
I don't think I had a job at that point, no.
So how would you start getting money for pills and everything like that? Did insurance cover that when you kept using your prescription? The insurance covered the whole thing. I think I was under my dad's insurance back then, but they paid for all that. But once you get off and you're an addict, you're on your own. You got to figure it out. And I had a lot of friends that were using.
nothing too crazy, but like, steal stuff. I was usually able to hold down a job during my addiction. But basically, if I'm serving tables somewhere and I get $100, well, I'm calling the guy to come to the restaurant, and 90 of it's going for pills. You know what I mean?
Did your parents try to intervene at all? I mean, your dad saw that you had an excessive amount of drugs.
Yeah, they did what they could. They really, really tried. I mean, at this point, I'd been to detox, rehab, all the traditional stuff, and it just wasn't quite working on me. But they tried everything within their power to keep me off of drugs.
So what happens next as your addiction continues?
Yeah, so as my addiction continues, I'm basically just, just trying to make it. I'm in and out of Oxford houses. I do a stint in rehab, actually. Let me back up. And my parents found like thousands and thousands of empty heroin baggies under my bed. And I call them and they're like, Phil, you can't come home, man. Like, this is too much. And so my mom gets on the phone with my counselor, and he's like, have you ever heard of Oxford House? And she's like, no. He's like, I'm going to talk to Phil about going there. So those are good places, but I just wasn't quite ready. So I just, I was just living in Newark, just, bouncing around jobs and stuff like that. I met a girl, and she was fine. She was a nice girl. She wasn't an addict or anything. She was a bartender. And I'm just, at this point, I'm kicked out of all the Oxford houses. I'm living in a hotel. And I'm taking her car up to Kensington every night. I don't know if you know anything about Kensington, Philadelphia.
Of course, yeah.
Getting I don't know what it was, supposedly heroin. It didn't feel like heroin to me, but, and, coming back, and I remember her like calling me, and she's like, Phil, like, it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm walking home from work. Where's my car? I got, it's a 2-mile walk. And I'm like, oh, like, I'll just be home, whatever. So like, obviously she wasn't going to put up with that for very long. And I thought I had it all figured out. And, so basically, we were fighting, and I'm like, just take me back to my parents. And she said, okay, that's fine. She took me back to my parents that night. And she said that I'd FaceTimed her about like midnight, but I realized like I don't have any money. I don't have a car. I had a cell phone, but that was it. And I'm like, what am I going to like do to not get sick? And I knew that like my mom had some pain medicine somewhere in the house. They were camping in Ocean City, Maryland at the time, and so I have the house, free reign in the house. So I'm digging through all the drawers. I'm digging through the dressers, and I find this bottle of stuff, and it's called morphine sulfate extended release. And I found them before and taken them when I need them. It's probably like the most pointless pain medicine that ever existed. It just doesn't really do anything. But I had found out that if you take like, 10, 15, I wouldn't get sick. You know what I mean? So like I take a bunch of them. This time I found some gabapentin too. So I take the gabapentin, and that's when I had my bad overdose. And the only time I've ever overdosed, just one time. And I was essentially dead.
Do you remember what happened when you woke up? Like, do you recall anything from those moments?
So no, I don't have any recollection. Like essentially, I'd asked my sister the night before. I said, can you run me to the pharmacy? I have some medicine to get. I don't know what kind of medicine it was, but and she said, yeah, like I'll do that. I'll come get you when I get off of work. Well, like, normally I would have texted her by then. So like 11 o'clock rolls around, I haven't texted. 12, still nothing. 1, well, she's working out of high school at the time. And she'd like tell somebody, she's like, I got to go check on my brother. They knew I wasn't doing very well. She said, I just got a bad feeling. Well, she comes to the house and finds me. If it's okay, I'm just going to read a text from the paramedic that found me. He was just an acquaintance at the time, but he has actually become a very good friend in my life. And And I just texted him and I asked him, I said, would a normal person have survived something like that? And he said, in the condition you were in, no, to be honest. If it would have happened and somebody was right there, yes, but when your sister found you, you had unknown downtime. You were already ashen. Your lips were blue. Your nail beds were blue. Your limbs were already cold. You had zero breathing. We started CPR on you, and I checked your chest. There was still a little warmth. We shot Narcan into your nose and made you breathe it in using a bag valve mask, and zero respiratory drive. I was essentially dead. And they didn't even know how long I was like that. So they shipped me off to the hospital. And at this point, like they pretty much, said that I was dead.
Does an incident like that change your relationship with your sister? When, her seeing you like that, being the one to report it and everything, does that change the dynamic?
So she had a hard time seeing me like that. And obviously, like, I love my sister to death now. But she was like doing therapy and stuff. And it was a nightmare for her. She doesn't want to, she's trying to raise kids and a family and has a great husband. Like, addiction was nothing in her life. You know what I mean?
What happens when you wake up?
So I wake up, and it was so weird. I wake up the first time, okay? And like, they had given me less than a 5% chance to live. I had an anoxic brain injury. So like a traumatic brain injury would be like where you hit your head. An anoxic brain injury is from a lack of oxygen. I had 2 strokes, no organ function whatsoever. And I had aspirated so much fluid into my lungs that they didn't even show up on the x-ray. So they're just like pretty much preparing my parents that like, your son's probably going to die. My brother, he's in the military. They flew him home. He might've been in Iraq or Afghanistan. And they flew him back to Delaware from a war zone just to be by my side because I was essentially going to die. But the first time I woke up, it had to have been the middle of the night. And like, anyone who overdoses, you can overdose for 30 seconds and you wake up, you don't know where you're at. You don't know what's going on, what happened to you. Well, I was in a coma for 2 weeks. And I'd flatlined, 4 or 5 times. And there was one time that was real bad. Basically, my mom's sitting there with my cousin holding my hand, and she said all the machines started acting real weird. And she's like, I'm going to go out there and get somebody. I was in the ICU. And she said, as she's walking out, all the doctors and nurses just come running in. They're all gowned up, gloves. And she said they kind of shuffled her out. But as they were shuffling her out, she said she saw a nurse jump on top of me and mount me and was doing chest compressions on me. And they were somehow able to bring me back every time.
When you wake up from being in a coma like that, how do you feel? Like, do you like?
I was on a lot of narcotics.
How's your brain, like your memory, everything?
So the first time I woke up, it's in the middle of the night. There's like a nurse just like on my computer, I would assume, or on computer charting. And like, I'm just like, what happened? And I scare her and she jumps back and like, she's like, oh shit, this guy's awake. And I'm just like, what happened? You need to tell me what happened. Why am I here? And like, she like wouldn't tell me. And I think they probably do that for a reason. They don't want you to lose your mind and I'm just like so scared and I'm just like, if somebody doesn't tell me what the fuck just happened, I'm going to lose my shit and someone's going to get hurt. Well, hospital staff, turns out they don't like it when you threaten them. So they sedated me again. And I woke up a couple days later, and this time they did it like a lot slower. And like they made sure my family was there. My brother was there, my buddy David flown in from California, my parents, everybody's there. And like, I wake up again and they don't know what my brain's going to be like. They had said like, he could be a vegetable or he could be normal, like probably something in between as far as, cause I wasn't breathing for so long. And I wake up again and I'm like, what happened? Somebody needs to tell me what's going on here. Cause I don't know how I got here. And there was a real beautiful, like Middle Eastern doctor standing in the back of the room. And she's like, Phillip, like you're here because you got pneumonia. And I'm like, pneumonia? That shit didn't do that to me. I'm healthy. And And then I see her and I see my brother. I'm like, yo, she's hot, dude. Let's see what she's doing after. Or maybe we can get her to the bar. And and they all start crying and losing their minds. And that's when they realized that like I would have a semblance of my old self, like that my brain was not just completely trashed, which it was bad for a lot of years. But yeah, so that's what it's like waking up from an overdose.
Did you have to relearn how to walk or anything?
Yes. I was able to talk. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. Couldn't read a clock. Yeah, I had to relearn everything, essentially, yeah.
So does this make you get sober, this incident?
No.
You go right back to using drugs?
So, basically, man, I'm in that hospital. I was in a coma for 2 weeks. I was in the hospital, I think, 34 days total, something around there. And they finally released me. And, I get home and I get back to my cell phone. Well, it's permanently locked. The Delaware State Police wanted to know what the fuck happened. They were trying to get into my phone and they completely disabled it. So back then, I don't know if you can still do it, but you could plug it into a computer and use iTunes to like restore it. And I get it restored. Wi-Fi only, didn't have money for cell phone service. And I'd say 2 weeks after I got out of that hospital, I got a text and it was somebody I know. And he just said, got perks. And it like kind of set me into a frenzy. I knew where my parents kept a spare debit card and I knew their PIN. And I go and I take it. And like there's like a food line a mile from my house. And I may have ran a 4-minute mile to this food line. I was running as fast as I can down these back roads. And I said before I left, yes, send it, pick me up at food line. And so I get the money. He picks me up. I eat them. He takes me back to my house. Well, this is right when banks had started doing text alerts for like debit ATM withdrawals and stuff like that. So my dad gets a text that $60 had just been withdrawn and he's waiting at the door for me. And like, he was so mad. Like he might've had an out of body experience. He was just so mad. And like, he just grabbed me and he's like shaking me. He's like, what do I have to do to fix you? Like, we almost just lost you. Like, what do you want me to do here, Phil? And I'm like, I don't know, Dad. I don't have a good answer for you. And like, I'd imagine that was a really rough night for them because I just somehow survived, got out of the hospital, and now I'm back doing the same shit again. So like, they're trying to find something to do with me, somewhere that can, help save me. And I'd had a couple friends. One of them, he did very well at Teen Challenge, and he's still doing well to this day. And I had a friend that was also working there as an intern, and he's like, yo, dude, why don't you come to a Teen Challenge? Like, I'll look out for you. I'll make sure you're taken care of. And I'm like, no, I ain't going to that, man. That place is crazy. Like, I've heard stories. I heard it's a cult. He's like, no, it's not a cult. It's fine. Just come here. Like, you'll be all right. I go there. That dude didn't do a fucking thing for me, dude. I don't even think I saw him when I was there, when I finally went there. And so like, I go there and my brain is just so messed up from the overdose. Like, I still can't read barely. I was in a very, very bad state. And like, they should have, I'm not going to say anything bad about Teen Challenge because it does help people, but they should have 100% vetted me out of that program somehow, because I did not belong there in that state. And so like, I'm there for like 6 weeks and I'm just miserable. I'm not talking to nobody. I'm just minding my own business. And like, I wake up one morning and you have to read the Bible for a half hour when you wake up every morning. And I'm talking to the guy, like the worker, and I'm like, yo, dude, I can't read this. Like, the writing's too small. The words are too big. And the whole time, instead of getting me therapy, they're just like, Jesus will heal you. Like, Jesus will take control and he's going to heal you and you're going to be okay. And I'm just like, whatever. And finally, like, this was the last straw when this guy, he's just like, go pray or pretend like you're reading. And I'm like, I'm escaping. I'm done here. I'm going to leave here today. So like, I go about the morning. I don't tell anybody. And I waited for like a good opportunity. So basically, we were like watching a Jesus movie or something. And I get up, I see that there's no staff around. I go to the door, exit, make a left, jump a fence, and then I'm free. I'm not a teen challenge anymore. And yeah, that was a short stay. So, and after I leave, I'm like walking down the street. I'm like, what do I do now? Like, I don't know. I didn't really think about what I was going to do after I left. And I know that there's a hospital nearby. So I'm like, let me just walk to the hospital. So like, I walk to the ER and like, I wait my turn in line and I go up to the lady and I'm like, hey, I don't really have a medical emergency, but do you guys have like a social worker or somebody here that I can talk to that can like, help me find a place to stay? And she's like, this is a hospital. Like that's not what we do here. And she's like, but there is a homeless shelter that opens when it's under 40 degrees. It's called Code Purple. Why don't you go down there and that would at least be a bed for you for the night until you, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. So like, she told me where it was at and it was maybe like a quarter mile away. And, my brain was just so ravaged. It took me like 4 hours to find it. And I finally find it. And, I walk in there, I'm wearing like khakis, gelled hair, button down shirt with a nice jacket. And I go up to the lady and she's like, hi, like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm here to stay. And she's looking at me. She's like, you aren't normally like the type of person we see here. And I'm like, I know. Like I just ran away from Teen Challenge. I just need somewhere to stay for the night. And that lady, her name's Nikki. She actually really helped me and went above and beyond for me that night. And I think she knew that I didn't really fit that demographic very well. And she's like, okay, like I'm gonna talk to you in a little bit. And I said, okay. And I said, if anyone from Teen Challenge comes here, tell them I'm not here. I'm hiding out from what I don't want to deal with them people anymore. Well, a couple hours later, they showed up. It was two of them. It was my boy and another guy who was actually paid. And like, I think my boy had gotten it that like, I shouldn't be there. And they're like trying to like get me to go back. And so the guy's like coming up and he's talking to me and he's holding me and he's like trying to like pray for me. And my boy's behind him. He's going, don't go back. Don't go back. Don't. And I'm like, okay. Like, and then he had to pretend to try and get me to go back. And the guy would walk away. He's like, yo, Phil, like you need more than this right now. Like, don't go back. Just go figure something else out. But he's working there. So he had to like play their game or whatever. So Nikki was able to get me into an Oxford house in Sussex County. So my first Oxford houses were in Newcastle, but the ones in Sussex County, they're a lot better and they're very well ran. So like I go there and the outreach worker came and picked me up, and I think I had to come up with like $275 entry fee, which they don't do that anymore. You can come in the houses with no money, but it was different back then. He comes and gets me, he takes me to the house. We have an interview, they accept me. And like, I'd say at that point, I strung together about a year of clean time. I got a job at a chicken processing plant, and my job was to hang chickens, 22 birds a minute, 8 to 12 hours a night. And it was actually good therapy for me because no one's bothering me. I'm just hanging chickens. I can focus on one thing. And like, I stuck that out for probably about 6 months. And then I fucked up and went and got another bartending serving job down at the beach. And, the amount of money that you're making down there, especially in the summer, and just the temptation and stuff like that, I ended up relapsing and getting kicked out of there. So
what happens after that?
So I'm these guys I'm living with, like they know something's up. And like, I said, tonight I'm going to call a house meeting and I'm going to tell them myself and tell them, that I'm just going to go. And I'm leaving work. I text everyone like, hey, is anyone home? Can we just have a little house meeting? I just want to talk to y'all. I get back to the house and they're like, yo, Phil, like we already knew, like we were actually drug testing you tonight. So, and I'm like, yeah, guys, I'm sorry. Like I fucked up. But the good thing about Oxford House is, man, like you can, just because you get kicked out, you're not banned from them. You can go to as many as you want. They will give you as many tries as it takes to make it in Oxford House. And I'll get into them a little more later. But so I pack all my shit and show up on my parents' doorstep again. And my dad, same drill. So what's your master plan now, Phil? And I'm just like, well, I guess I'm going to obviously live here, but I'm just going to go to the methadone clinic tomorrow and and get on medication. And he's just like, don't do methadone. He's like, get on Suboxone. Suboxone is a lot easier on your body. And I had been down this Suboxone methadone road before. And he's just like, just do yourself a favor and get on Suboxone. And I said, okay. And I went there. And so that was, at this clinic, they gave you, instead of Suboxone, they gave you Subutex. So the difference is Suboxone if you do an opioid, it will block it. Subutex, it doesn't. So they're just like pumping you full of like opioids essentially with no blocker. So you can still go out and get high if you wanted to, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of like, the next couple of years, I'm kind of just, doing Suboxone every morning, or Subutex every morning, getting high whenever I can, whenever I have the money, just, stuff like that. I had met someone that I actually really genuinely liked. She had 2 kids. She ended up moving into my parents' basement with me. And obviously I'm just a complete disaster at this point. I was able to hold down a job, but that was about it. And at some point she did what she could for me, but she's just like, this guy's a fucking loser. I gotta go. And like, at that point, like something kind of clicked in me, and like I'd gotten into this routine where like I would be up all night, be the first one in line at the clinic, 5 a.m, go home, go to bed, and then get up for work around like, 3 or 4 or something like that. And when you're an addict and when you're up all night, like your mind kind of wanders, and I'm just like doing like these stupid Google searches, like how to get clean, how to be a better person, how to do this, how to do that. And I come across this stuff called Ibogaine, and like, this was probably 2019, and it was coming to light, like just how amazing this medicine is. But I'm doing research, and I'm watching YouTube videos, and I'm joining Facebook groups and Reddit threads. And like, I joined a Facebook group. It's called Ibogaine Universe, all caps. I just make like a very generic post, like, hey, like, I am interested in doing this medicine. And if anyone could give me some info on how to get it or what to do and stuff like that, that would be amazing. And like, people started messaging me, and that community was so receptive to me, even just being where I was at. And they all started like telling me like the process of getting it, and how it worked and what you can and can't do, and stuff like that.
It's interesting that someone could want to be sober so bad and get clean, but yet is unable to physically bring themselves to do it. Like you're going through the steps of searching.
Something clicked in me after Shannon left. Like something just clicked in me, and I was just like, is this really like this girl? Like I loved her, and I was very attached to her 2 kids, and like, and I'm just like, man, like I gotta figure. It's time to at least make one real good attempt to get myself together.
So do you start using this Ibogaine?
I'll tell you how it works. So basically, it's a process. So Ibogaine is not legal in America. You have to go. You can do it in Canada. You can do it in Mexico. You can do it in the Bahamas. But it is a Schedule I narcotic in the United States, which means no potential medical benefit. It got like outlawed with the whole war on drugs. They like killed all the psychedelic research and stuff like that. So, I'm asking questions, and these 2 very nice girls, Molly and Kelly, message me, and I'm talking to them independently, and they're like, I tell them that like, look, I'm on Subutex. Can I take this can I do the Ibogaine while I'm on the Subutex? And they're like, no, like you can be on short acting opioids, but you cannot be on long acting opioids like that. It'll just block it out. It's worthless if you do it like that. So like I realized like the more research I do, like this is something I really want to do. And I think that this might give me a shot at getting clean. So like I start like telling my mom about it, and I'm like, Mom, like, look, this is, I'm showing her YouTube videos. I'm showing her news articles. I'm showing her like people before and after they do it, stuff like that. And she was intrigued, and like she's showing her friends, and they're all talking about it. And she's like, if this is something you want to do and you want to go to Mexico and do this Ibogaine, just come up with a game plan, because I'm not the hard one. Like, your dad's going to be the one that you got to convince because he's going to be the one paying for it. And so, I'm kind of working on my dad, telling him that like, this is what I want to do. And obviously as a pharmacist, no, I'm not, you're not doing some like weird plant medicine down in Mexico. Like, are you crazy? And like, I'm just working on him for a couple months. And like, there was one day, I'm just sitting around, he's off and he's like, hey, Phil, come on, let's go somewhere. And like, all right, where do you want to go? He's like, let's take the dog Sophia down to the beach and let's just go for a walk on the beach. I want to talk to you. And like, my dad's a very smart man. And you can tell when he has when he has something he doesn't say much sometimes, but when he has something to say, like he means it. So we go for this walk on the beach and it was freezing cold. And he's like, so like, what is your game plan here, man? Like, what do you, like, you're bugging mom about this weird medicine and like, you're bugging me. And like, can you just like, I just wanted to come talk to you man to man and know like, what are you trying to do here? And I tell him pretty much what I told you, that like, it's very high success rate, in addiction and, mental health issues. And, he's like, if this is something that you really want to do, that's fine. I'll pay for it. And I'm like, but there's a kicker. I got to get off of the Subutex. And he's like, okay, like if that's what you want to do, you have to get off of it the right way. He's like, if you just stop showing up to that clinic, you'll probably be in the hospital because you'll be so sick. And he's like, you need to tell the doctor what you want to do, how you're going to do it, what your game plan is. And these doctors don't care. They just write Suboxone and methadone all day and adjust medicines pretty much. And so I make an appointment and like, I might as well have been speaking French to this doctor because he just didn't care. He didn't know, didn't want to know. And I'm like, and I come up with a game plan outside of my dad. So like, I go to the doctor and I say like, look, tell him the whole spiel. And I'm like, I want to go down 2 milligrams a day. I'm on 14 milligrams. I want to go down 2 milligrams a day for a week. And then I'll be done with it. He's like, I cannot ethically do that to you. You will be very sick. And I'm like, okay, well, you can either do it or I'm going to stop coming here. And he's like, okay, whatever, I'll do it. So Suboxone, Subutex, those type of medications, they take very, very, very long to get out of your system. So basically what I did was I got tapered off down to 0 milligrams. And then I just started hitting the streets. And like, this was back before the day of like pressed fentanyl. So like, I knew if I was buying a perk 30 on the streets, it was a perk 30. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have to worry about the fentanyl being added to the mix yet, at least in Delaware. And I'm contacting this clinic down in Mexico, the one Molly told me to go to. And, they're like, what we want you to do is going to take 30 or 40 days to get out of your system. Day 30 off the Subutex, we want you to go to Walmart, buy every drug test they have, and drug test yourself every single day. And the second that Subutex is out of your system, call us, and then we'll arrange on how to get you down there. So I think it was day 42, something like that, when I finally pissed clean.
And then you end up going to Mexico?
So, obviously, I had to arrange transportation. At this point, I'm just so sick from all the drugs. And even though I'd switched back to perks and stuff, it was just so like, I could barely walk. One thing from when I'd gotten off the Subutex, like it's just a long withdrawal. It was hard on my body. And so like the way I ended up getting down to Mexico, we book a flight to San Diego and I'm so sick I can barely walk. And I call them, I'm like, hey, I'm leaving. They're like, okay, we'll have a driver there when you arrive. And my brother and my dad took me to the Philadelphia airport. And we get there, my brother's just like, Dad, I got this. I'm gonna walk him in and talk to him on the way in. And so he's walking me in and he's just we're walking together and he's like, hey man, like I love you. And I know this is a Hail Mary, but like you gotta make this work this time because Dad just spent a lot of money on this stuff. And I said, I know. And I gave him a hug and he pushed me into TSA. And I landed in San Diego. They had a driver there who drove me to the clinic. It's called Experience Ibogaine. It's a really good clinic. If anyone's interested in doing it, I recommend it. But they drove me through Tijuana to Rosarito, Mexico. And like, it was so different than what I was used to. Just like Mexico's obviously different, but like when I get to this clinic, it's beautiful. It's just I could see the Pacific Ocean. And like, I go in the doors and there's a guy standing there, older gentleman. And he's like, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm going to be your Ibogaine doctor." And I'm like, "Oh, damn, in America, like you usually got to wait like 3 or 4 days to see a doctor and you're right here already." And he's like, "Yeah, like, we do it a little different in these Ibogaine clinics." He's like, "Are you sick? Are you withdrawing right now?" And I said, "Yeah, I am withdrawing a little bit." And he's like, "How much were you using a day?" And I lied. I'm like, I was doing 12 perk 30s a day. That way he would give me a lot. And he hands me pain medication to keep me comfortable until I did the treatment. So at these clinics, like they're very good about keeping you comfortable until you can get the treatment done. And he's like, next step, like I got to give you a drug test. We're going to do a liver panel. We're doing EKG. We're going to make sure that you are healthy enough to take this Ibogaine. And I said, okay. Did all that stuff. Next day, they're like, "Okay, like you're clear to do the Ibogaine." So like that second day, I was just pretty much hanging out, just getting used to my surroundings. And like the third day, they're like, "Okay, like today is going to be the day where you are going to do the Ibogaine." And they kind of were talking to me about what to expect. And so they're like, "We're going to give you your last dose of morphine at 12. You can't eat after that. All you can drink is Kool-Aid. And we're probably going to give you the flood dose around 9 p.m. at night." And so I'm just sitting around hanging out with the nurses. They were all very, very sweet, good people. And one of the nurses is like, "Hey, like, do you want to like turn on a movie or something?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." Well, it was all the they had Netflix, but it was in Spanish. So like I couldn't read it. So I'm just like looking for something I recognize. Well, I saw Scarface. Put on Scarface, probably one of the most violent movies ever made, right before I'm about to do the strongest psychedelic on the planet. And so, the movie finishes and they're like, "Okay, like, it's getting close to 9. Like, give me your cell phone, go up to the bed, make yourself comfortable, and we'll give you further instructions." So like the way you administer Ibogaine is you take a test dose and then a dose every half hour for 2 hours. So 4 doses total. So I get through all those. And the nurse came up to me and he's like, "Hey, like, are you tripping?" And I'm like, "No, not really. No." I'm thinking like, I'm just too man for this. I've done too many drugs for this shit. Like this can't touch me. And, so he's like, "Okay, I'm going to go get you a 5th one. I'm going downstairs. I'll be right back." And he came down. When he came back up the stairs, he looked like a monster. Like, you ever seen from Dusk Till Dawn where they like transform and like, yeah, he was like scary. And I'm like scared of him and I'm scooting away and I can't really move. And he's like, "Hey, it's me, the nurse." And I'm like, and he's like, "Here's your 5th dose." I'm like, "I don't want it. I don't want it." He's like, "No, you take it. Just take it." I said, "Okay." So when you're doing an Ibogaine trip, the very first thing you hear is a loud ringing in your ears. It's like standard across the board. Everybody gets it. Almost like a million bees right in your ears, loud as can be. Then that's that like it's no turning back now, essentially. And they like have this weedy music, like this. Where the medicine originated from in Africa, it's Gabon, like the Bwiti tribe. They're like pumping all this Bwiti music like on a Bluetooth speaker, loud as can be. And I'm like, "Yo, can y'all like put on like some Dave Matthews Band or something?" And they're like, "No, like this is tribal music. Like this is going to help your experience. Just trust me." And they're like, okay. And so like basically I'm sitting there and you the beginning of doing Ibogaine, it's probably the most uncomfortable thing you're going to go through. Like your heart is bumping out of your chest. Like I just watched Scarface, so I think someone's like coming to kidnap me or something. And you're throwing up everywhere. And it's just really uncomfortable. So, as you are like laying there longer and longer, you just kind of accept that like you got to ride this out and you're not going anywhere. So, I'm laying there and like, so this is going to sound insane, but I'm going to say that my experience doing Ibogaine is outrageous as all this is going to sound. It's not anything out of the ordinary. This is pretty standard for what happens to people when they do Ibogaine. So like I open my eyes and it's just like the brightest blue hieroglyphs at the wall, all the way across the wall. And I wish I could have like taken a picture of them or something and had them decipher, but it was like, it was insane. So I closed my eyes. I'm like, well, I guess I'm keeping my eyes shut for the next 12 hours because that's weird. And so like, I'm just like letting the experience happen. And a couple hours into it, once you start to calm down, I hear a voice and it's like very distinct. And it's like, why are you here? And I say back in my mind, like, I want to get better. And almost like a stern father or something. And it's like, why do you want to get better? And I'm like, well, I want to do it for my family and I want to have a good life. And it's like, and it says like, pick the 3 most traumatic experiences of your life and you'll get better. And so like the first one, I'm thinking about it and then bam, I'm like, it was my best friend in 4th grade that had died and I have an asthma attack of all things. And I'm like back at his funeral and I'm like floating above it. And I remember the weather and everybody crying and like, but like, it was like peaceful. And like, it kind of showed me that he was at peace and he was in a better place. His name was JD. It was a good thing. At this point, the Ibogaine, it's you're past all the scary stuff and you're just down for the ride. And so like the second one, I had a friend in high school, once again, sledding accident. He had like a horrible like Final Destination style death where he was being pulled by a truck and he hit a tree stump and it like essentially like severed his like lower organs and he was dead before they even got him to the hospital. And like that was where my life really derailed because I was 16. I was fully able to process it. And I think about less than 6 months after he died, we were all so hurt by it. That's when I committed my felony assault. And then next thing you know, I'm back at his funeral. And after that, like, next thing you know, like we're in a room together and he's like, Phil, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, man. He's like, you got to get better. Like you got to, and I'm just like, I know, but I've just been such a piece of shit my whole life and all that. And he's like, do you want to see what your life would be like, what your family's life would be like without you? And it was just kind of like it showed what my life would have, my family's life would have been like if I would have died during that overdose. And it was not good. My mom's just a wreck. My dad and brother are alcoholics. And it showed me that my family will cease to exist. As much of a piece of shit as I've been my whole life without me. Like they need me to survive essentially. And the third one was my ex's stepdad. We just kind of watched him like terminal cancer. He just kind of rotted away. And like a lot of times I would go over there and just like sit with him and just hang out. And we wouldn't even talk. Like, I don't know what you're going to say to someone who's like dying of cancer. Like ask him how the weather is or like if the Giants are going to beat the Ravens. Like there's not really much to say. So we would just sit together and smoke and hang out. That was just able to like help me release so much trauma. It just showed that like all my trauma was from death. And that it's okay, like that's not that bad, and it's just something new. And like Chase said, like I'm fine, like you can move on without me. You know what I mean? And I just said okay. And And they had told me like the second that you feel like you can get out of this bed, when you see the sun coming up, you can. So like sun's coming up, I get out of bed and like I'm looking at the Pacific Ocean and like it was just such like an amazing experience. Like and I later found out that like this medicine is one of the most neuroregenerative substances on the planet. So it repairs brain injury. It can repair like brain injuries, people with like Parkinson's and MS. They're finding a lot of success with it. Like tier 1 operators, like Navy SEALs, Delta Force guys, they're sending them down to Mexico by the busload now to help them get this medicine. And they're coming back with like new leases on their lives, essentially. And it really, I just happened to walk into that. I didn't even know it was a thing. And like, I remember like being able to think and like my brain was just like firing on all cylinders all of a sudden. And like, I'm calling my mom, I'm calling my sister, and I'm just like telling them how sorry I am. And, you know, I just knew, so another thing about this Ibogaine, so it is very strong anti-addictive properties. So after you take this stuff, you wake up, you have no withdrawal from the opioids, you have no cravings, and you're essentially just like, you know, free again from it.
And you don't have to do other doses of the Ibogaine?
Just one
just
12
one
hour.
and you're done.
It's almost hard to believe, Ian, but like Google or YouTube will be your friend on this if you're interested in doing it. Like and I might not be explaining it the best, but like the information it's about Ibogaine, it's very easy to find.
All right, well, I guess here's the question then. Have you used drugs since doing that?
No.
No cravings?
No.
So how long have you been clean for now?
Well over 5 years now.
All because of that?
All because of that one experience. And like, mine wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Like, there are a lot of people going down there and getting clean from this Ibogaine.
But do you think it's a mental thing? Because you were ready to change, right?
I will say that you have to want to do it. If somebody drags you down there and makes you do it, you're probably going to have a good chance of relapsing. But I would say you need to be ready, and you need to be ready to change your life after the Ibogaine, which is what I did differently after that.
But you're someone in recovery now that does use weed, right?
Yeah,
so it doesn't technically get rid of all of your drug cravings, right?
So like I do have some pain issues from my overdose. And I might like smoke a little bit at night just to relax and calm down. But I'm not like a heavy user or anything, but I've never used a hard drug since that day.
No, I'm not judging. I was just curious.
I know. Yeah.
Well, I know there's a debate where like, you know, if you're clean in recovery, then you can't use any type of drug. But I'm kind of in the belief where like, okay, if your addiction was gambling per se, then okay, then you can smoke weed or do something else, you know, and vice versa. I
would say that it probably is like the guideline, but everybody's different.
Yeah.
Like I know that I'm never going to do a hard sell unless I have a bone sticking out of my leg. Like I'm never going to take another opioid again. And like the progression I've made in my life since doing that Ibogaine, it's pretty astounding.
Yeah. What's your life like now?
So basically, I leave out of that clinic. I go to my aftercare in Austin, Texas, and you know, they were good people there. COVID wiped them out, so like they're not in business anymore. But it's owned by a psychotherapist, and like their main thing was, you know, you cannot go back to that same mess you left, or you're gonna relapse. And I said, okay. And like, at first I'm kind of in denial. I'm like, I can go back to my parents' basement. And they're like, no, Phil, like you can't do that. So eventually they work on me enough, and I'm like, okay, I'll go back into sober living at an Oxford house. And so the outreach guy, he was the state chair by the time I had done the Ibogaine, but we had a big falling out. His name's Tony. And I'm like, man, now I got to text Tony, even though, you know, he probably hates me. And like, I unblock him on Facebook. I write him a text, and he must have been looking at his phone, because like he texts me back instantly. He's just like, hey man, you know, I think about you sometimes, hope you're doing well. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm doing well, but I need a house now. He's like, okay, like I'll get you into a house. Just don't worry about it. Like, what are you doing? Where are you at? And when you leaving? And I told him like, I'm in Austin, Texas. I'll be here for, this amount of days. And he said, okay, call me a week before. We'll get you an interview set up and you can come, we'll get you back into a house. So, I do my time in Austin and, I go back and this time, like I really focused on doing stuff right. Like instead of looking for the bad guys in the Oxford house, I was like looking for the good people, the people that like wanted to change their lives, if that makes sense. And, so I get back and I show up, and I knock on the door, I catch my flight, get in my car, come down to the Oxford house. Guy that opens the door is outside of Drew, probably one of my best friends to this day. First guy I meet there. And he's just like, hey, like, I work third shift. Like, have you been in one of these houses? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a frequent flyer in these houses. Like, I'm good. And, he's like, okay, like, I'm just going to go over it a little bit and then I'm going to go to bed. I've been up all night. So, and this is right when COVID is popping off, right at the beginning of it in 2020. There's no jobs. Unemployment had not started giving out the money yet. They were just unprepared. So the house, like you have to have a job in one of these houses, or you got to volunteer, but I wanted to get a job. I'm like, I'm just going to do 10 Indeed applications a day. That's it. And then I'm going to be free the rest of my day until I find a job. And I was helping Tony a little bit with like, opening other houses and stuff like that, moving furniture and stuff for him. But, so 10 applications a day, was doing them every day, did that for about a week. And, I'll never forget, I was leaving a therapy appointment. And I get a call and it's from a California number. And I'm like, I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with COVID. Let me just answer it just in case. And it's a guy on the other end and he's like, hi, how would you like a job making $50,000 to $70,000 a year? And I'm just like, what do I got to do for that? Like, is it legal? And he's like, yeah, man, it's Red Bull Distribution Company. You've heard of the energy drink, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it's Red Bull. And I'm like, just like, okay, yeah, I want to do it. Sign me up. Like, let's get to the next step. And he's like, okay, like what I'm going to do is send your application to a local district manager in your local building where you live. And his secretary will set you up for an interview. And I'm checking my phone, every 10 minutes for like a couple of days. I finally get an email from her and she's like, tell me a time when you can do an interview. I'm like, yeah, full availability. Let's just get it done. And she's like, okay, it has to be on Zoom because of COVID. You can't come to the building right now. So we do the interview, and the guy is a little Moldovan guy, like the hardest worker I've ever seen. He's old Soviet Russia guy, like, and he's like, hey, like, I've had 60 applicants for this job. I just want to let you know that. And I'm so underqualified. I got 4 months clean. Like, I just moved into this house. And, so like, for some reason, somehow he picked me. I don't know, out of all those people, I said something to him that struck a chord and I got the job. And I started that job. It was 4/20/20. I'll never forget the date. So I show up there day one. COVID's got everything all fucked up. Like we can't ride in trucks together. I can't go into the building. I can't do this. So the guy who's training me, I'm literally just following around his Red Bull truck all day, doing the stops with him, getting back in my car, going to the next one. And it was just a horrible way to learn how to be an account manager at Red Bull. And it wasn't anyone's fault. It was just the circumstances. And I was bad at that job for a long time. It took me a long time to get my body back. And these guys are pretty highly paid, but it's a grueling 12 to 14 hour a day job, managing all these accounts. And they needed a body so bad. So I followed that guy for 2 weeks and they sent me out on the road. And I tell like the district manager, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, dude. And he's like, I know, it's fine. Just do your best. We need someone to go out there and sell Red Bull. Like, So as soon as I got my driving privileges instated, I was in that truck and I was driving around selling Red Bull. And they gave me 104 accounts to manage.
Wow.
And so they're all different frequencies, like Wawa's, 3 times a week, Walmart's twice a week, down to the ones that are once a month. But and like, I don't know why I didn't quit or how I didn't quit, but like, I don't know. I wrote it out, and like when I saw my first paycheck, so all of my back pay from unemployment came, and Red Bull was giving hazard pay. Like I think it was like $500 a week or something. So like I wake up one morning and my bank account's got like $10,000 in it, and I'm like, the fuck is this? And I'm like, oh, this one is from unemployment, and this is from Red Bull. And I'm like, okay, let's try this. And 6 months, I said, I'm going to give myself 6 months. And 6 months go by, I'm still horrible at this job. Don't know what I'm doing. And like, I text the district manager. It was a Sunday night. I had to be there 5 a.m. on Monday. He's like, hey, I'm like, hey, I quit. I can't do this job anymore. I'm going to go back to the managing the donut shop. And he just texted me back, very simple text. You cannot quit. I will see you tomorrow at 5. And I'm like, man, I can't even quit. Like, that's crazy. So like, I go there, and he said, we'll talk tomorrow also. So I go there, and he said like some stuff to me I'll never forget. A lot of like the Red Bull staff didn't like this guy. I thought he was a very good boss, very fair. But and he sits me down and he's like, hey man, like I know this job sucks. I know this job is hard. I know you're working 14 hours a day. And he said, like, this job will be the hardest thing you ever do. He said, if you can manage this job and at least do it mediocre in managing these accounts, you will do well in everything else in your life. Your life will come together. And that kind of was when I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to ride this out no matter how long it takes. And like, I ended up staying there for 4.5 years. And I became like I wasn't like the best account manager, but I became a pretty decent account manager. In those 4.5 years. And like my body from all the overdose, it was just too broken to like keep lifting sodas and working those hours. And so I eventually did move on to something better from Red Bull. But Red Bull was very, very good to me. And they kind of saved my life in a way because I was at that turning point. You know what I mean? So.
What do you think is the learning lesson you want people to take away from your story today? Just you can't give up. Like no matter what you've been through, if I can escape an overdose where I had less than a 5% chance to live, you got to keep going and just don't give up on yourself. And as far as this Ibogaine, I can't say enough good things about it. I 100% credit it for saving my life. And I mean, I have a little daughter now and a house and a car and like I own a business, a thriving business actually. And like this, like, I think this medicine will probably end up being the future of addiction. I hope. And there's a lot of people in on this movement now. It's gaining some steam and a lot more people are starting to find out about it. Like when I did it, you had to have money to get that shit. Like, let's face it. I think my dad paid $5,500 for the treatment, and then he paid $12,500 for the aftercare. So $18,000 my dad shelled out to get me to do this stuff. It's a good man right there.
My dad's a real one, Ian. my dad's a real dude. So, and just if anyone's interested in doing it, like, you can't take no for an answer. You have to figure it out. This medicine is not going to come to you. If you have the PTSD, addiction, mental health issues, like you have to make arrangements in your life to go find this medicine. And there's people that practice it in America, even though it's illegal. They kind of operate under like a religious gray area, but like it is available, and it can save lives.
Bill, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man.
Yeah, man.
It was a pleasure talking to you and hearing about this. And,
thank you.
Hopefully it inspires some others.
Yeah, I hope so, man. And if anyone ever has any questions about Ibogaine, like they can always reach out to me. So
we'll have your Instagram or whatever in the bio of the episode.
Yeah, that's fine. And like, I'm not an expert in the field, but I can direct them. So
awesome. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, man.